What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the Work to Create podcast. I'm your host, Colton Bacher, and this is Season 1, Episode 9. This week, I'm walking you through a full creative pre-production breakdown, specifically for freelance and event videographers. No film school, no problem. I got you here on today's episode, whether you're shooting music content, branded events, or even weddings. The goal for today is to save you time, make your videos better, and help you lead every project with a clear, confident vision, all without needing a full team or a massive budget. Plus, at the end of the episode, I'll run you guys through my exact pre-production process. Let's get into it.
I done came up, went through the ups and downs, but I stayed tough. Never took a shortcut and never gave up. This time around, I'ma stay up.
Hey guys, how's it going? Happy Men's Health Month. June is, National Men's Health Month. And I just wanted to really quick put this out there as someone who has struggled with mental health throughout my life. And especially as a guy, it's really important that we put aside like our ego or whatever we were taught as a kid to just push our emotions aside or whatever it is. And whether you're going through mental or physical struggles, please just reach out to someone. It could be anyone, your friends, family. It could be a random therapist. It could be ChatGPT even. But don't put this stuff on the back burner. Health is wealth, and if you don't get ahead of it, it can it can result in a very long recovery process. Take it from me, it's a daily struggle. So yeah, just wanted to raise a little bit of awareness for that, especially for like all my guys out there. It's not easy being vulnerable, but this stuff is important. All right, we got a super fun announcement. I've decided that I'm going to create a music industry sound effects pack. You heard that right. We're talking pyro, CO2, crowd noises, whooshes, risers, downers, a little bit of textures for your building animations. Yeah, we're doing it. So starting next week, I will begin the process of creating this pack, but I'm not going to be talking a ton about it on here. Like, I'll announce it when it goes live and all of that stuff. But if you want to have a say in what specific sound effects get included and have early access and get a free sample pack prior to the launch, you'll have to join my newsletter. So that's where I'll be having conversations with you guys and letting you know all about the details before I announce it here or anywhere else. So check out the newsletter, a work in progress. If you don't have time for an hour-long podcast like this, I send over emails that can be read and digested in 2 minutes or less. In addition to everything I just mentioned, the link is in the description and show notes. Okay, little disclaimer for this episode. This episode is not focused on the entire pre-production process. This is specifically the creative aspects of pre-production versus like the logistical and financial aspects of pre-pro. So if you want an episode on the logistical and financial aspects of pre-production, let me know and I can add it to the queue. But for now, we're just going to focus on the creative stuff. Okay. Creative collaboration with clients. I know, not where you thought we were going to start, but you are not just a shooter. You are a guide. So we need to start the conversation before anything else. We need to ask, what is the purpose of this video? Who is it for? What do you want people to feel or do after watching? With clients, a lot of times they're going to have goals. They're going to have a reason why they're asking you to create the content that you are, the videos that you are, or even shooting the photos that you are. And so our job as the person providing the service, the creative, is to understand their goals and what they want to the best of our abilities. And there's a couple ways that we can do this. We can build a creative brief. So after we've kind of had a conversation with them, we can recap goals, deliverables, tone, timeline, and then references, which we'll talk about. And then we need to keep it clear and visual. And then we would document this process and outline these goals and deliverables and timelines in a document or in an email that sets the direction for everything to follow. So we would kind of create like a master email thread where all of this information can be found so that the client can reference it, and then so we can reference it as well. Speaking of references, we want to talk to the client about style references. So we're talking mood boards, past videos, screenshots, whatever helps you and the client imagine the same final product. This, in my experience, is the most difficult hurdle in this process. It's aligning your vision with the client's vision. And I put that intentionally. I said align your vision with the client's vision. And I did that intentionally because our vision will always be second to the client's vision. The client's vision is number one priority. I know the artist in us is like anti, input, anti like other people's ideas, like our ideas are, we tend to favor our ideas because we think that they're the best. But at the end of the day, we are providing a service, and it's really important for our reputation and the relationship that we have with our client. It needs to be some give and take. So at the end of the day, we need to align our vision with their goals. Okay, another really important aspect here when we're having conversations with our client. This is all before we do anything, but this is before we, way before we press record, but also way before we do a bunch of other pre-production stuff. So we need to clarify expectations. So for example, how many revision rounds are included before, we have to, charge an extra fee for additional revisions? What are the deadlines? And then this, in my experience, has been very important, and it's who approves these things. So who approves the V1, the V2, the V3? How many layers of bosses or how many people have to have eyes on this before it can get cleared and we get the green light to move forward and finalize the video? That is really important because if you have that conversation up front, it's going to avoid you getting blindsided by like 30 plus revisions. And yes, that is real. There are clients out there where you will have to do 30 plus revisions. And now granted, those are big paying jobs, but they have a lot of people that they have to clear it through. And so it's not like the most common, but it's just important to know right off the bat how many people are going to have to approve this, and kind of just helps you set your expectations too. Because it's like you want to like finalize the video and get it out, as soon as possible and as few as revisions as possible. Right. And so that kind of just helps everyone have an idea of what's going to happen. And then lead the vision, but respectfully. So this is the kind of the last part here on the client side. If an idea won't work creatively or practically, you need to be able to explain why and suggest a better alternative. It is our job to creative problem solve. And if you want to be a great director or team lead someday, you need to be extremely good at solving these problems. That is the nature of the game. We are creative problem solvers, especially if you like I said here, if you want to be a team lead or a director, that is half the job, if not more, because the client will constantly be throwing things into your lap that you did not expect, and maybe that doesn't match the creative. So now we the original ideas or the original agreed upon ideas or whatever, and we need to pivot. And it's all about being able to pivot, but push back when needed. So it's like I said, lead the vision respectfully. So we need to explain why something might not work that the client wants to do. And then if we provide a sound explanation, a lot of times the client will be like, oh, well, that makes sense. Like Okay, cool. That's fine. All right. Okay. Hopefully that all made sense. We're going into scripting and outlining even for non-narrative work. Okay, and I know right off the bat you're like, okay, I'm a freelancer, I'm doing events, like I don't need to script or outline anything. But hear me out. A clear structure gives you freedom, not restriction. So we need to focus on the message. What is the core takeaway? This becomes your North Star and guides all creative decisions moving forward. Okay. The reason we need to like nail down our creative direction is because every decision that you make after that is going to push you and bring that project in that direction. If you do not have a clear creative direction, decisions will start to get fragmented and go in different directions, and that can result in kind of a janky, almost kind of disjointed feeling in the video. Like if you've ever watched a video and you're like, something is off and I don't know what. It's probably because there was too many cooks in the kitchen, or there just wasn't a clear, definitive creative direction for the project. So that's why this is really important. So once we've kind of identified our North Star, we're going to outline the structure. Whether it's a promo or a wedding, we need to map out the sequence. How is the video going to flow? So we have, like, for example, intro, key visuals, transitions, ending. So like let's do an example for like a show recap, right? Okay, we can just assume or anticipate, and normally I would just kind of like jot this down on a piece of paper or something, and I'll just like break it down really fast after I've had a conversation with the client so that I know what to expect for the show. I would be like, okay, artist is going to come on stage. Maybe it's a specific song and they're going to plan a special moment with CO2 or, or fire or something, right? So there, he or she comes on stage, and then maybe after that, it goes into kind of more experiential. So it's like maybe we get some crowd shots of them like singing to a specific song, or maybe we're showing off the personality of the artist or something like that. And then maybe we go into, and I'm going to simplify it here just for the sake of this example, but maybe we just go right into the end where it's like confetti or a balloon drop or something like that. And then maybe we end with the artist, like putting their hand up in the air, or like, putting their hands together, like thanking the fans, or maybe we even end it with like some dialogue, some like a sound pop or whatever you want to call it, where they thank the fans, on the mic. So that's like an example of just like quickly building out some sort of structure. And so, for example, we can write like a loose script. Like this is another way to do it. You can use bullet points or talking points. There's also this thing called an audio-visual layout. So it's like a 2-column structure where like on the left, you would have like all the audio going on, and then on the right, as that audio is going on, you like list out the visuals. So that's like an example, like another way that you could create some sort of structure for your video. It's really dependent on like how your brain works. For me, I'm probably best just doing everything like chronological, like all in one row versus like 2 columns. It's just like the way my brain works. But then like for interviews or docs where you have to like prepare questions, that's when we also want to know like what beats we're trying to hit. So for example, like I said, like if maybe like the music that you're editing to has like a quiet moment, it's like, okay, maybe that's where we put in some dialogue and we can just like slip that in there really smoothly. So it's just like, again, thinking ahead, knowing what beats we're trying to hit, what are the key like parts of this event, or whatever the key parts of the video are. A really quick note on interview questions, though. A lot of people get this wrong. And I think it's like rule number one is never ask questions that are yes or no, that have yes or no answers. Because at the end of the day, someone saying yes or no in an interview is not a good, like, that doesn't tell us anything. That doesn't help push the story forward. And on top of it, we don't want to include ourselves asking the question or someone else's audio asking the question. The focus is whoever is on camera, and we want them to do all the talking. And so we need to phrase things in a way that gets them to say what we want them to say. So, for example, let's say your artist is performing in Chicago, because that's where I live, and we want them to say that they're playing at Aragon Ballroom in Chicago, and it's like sold out. So we would ask questions that would get them to say they're playing at Aragon Ballroom in Chicago, and they can like hear the crowd right now and it's packed out or it's sold out or something like that. And like I don't have any examples prepared, but I just want to put that in the back of your minds when it comes to preparing questions. And it could even be, for example, I know a lot of people do kind of like interviews at festivals. And so it's thinking ahead and being like, okay, what do I want these people to say about the festival? And then working backwards with your questions to try and get them to say that answer. That's like the best way I can describe it. Okay, one last note on this like scripting and outlining side of pre-production. We need to stay flexible, especially with live events. Your script is a guide, not a rule book. So we can do all the planning we want to do in the world, and we'll talk about this more later, but a lot of times things do not go according to plan. That's okay, though, and we have to be okay with that, and we need to anticipate that as well. More on that in a little bit. Okay. Storyboarding and shot listing. So without film school. So I'm just going to assume a lot of you don't really have any formal education on this topic. And to be honest, I don't really either. It's like a little bit, it was covered in my program that I went to, but nothing super in depth, nothing that like was life-changing. It was more so me on YouTube and doing research to figure out some best practices here. So for storyboarding and shot listing, the goal is clarity, not beauty. So this is where all of our technical details are refined. So we're going to create a detailed shot list. And in that shot list, so we're going to use our scripting and outlining to now develop a shot list. And we're going to include framing, angles, camera movement, subject and priority, and we're going to use this as a checklist on the day of the shoot. This could even, if you want to get like super technical, which I normally do more of this with like studio productions where we have like a controlled environment and a controlled set, but you could include things like the specific camera, the lenses and focal lengths you want to use, and even down to like the frame rate. So there's a lot of information that you can include in here. The next note is like stay lean. So plan for what you need, but you don't like plan for every shot. Especially with events, you need that wiggle room to kind of just like play and discover things on the day of. But this is a big but. Make sure we have proper coverage. Cover your bases. Get everything, but don't overshoot. It's a delicate balance, and honestly, when I was first shooting, I overshot every show. It'd be like just shooting on like the Sony, it'd be like 150 gigs every show. Now that did include photos, but still, no, please don't. You're making a lot more work for yourself on the back end. But like I said, just take some time to kind of find your rhythm and your kind of flow. Again, it's a flow. Speaking of flow, we need to map the flow visually. So like we talked about in our outlines, outlining key moments, we have things like the venue, speaker, audience reactions, details. So this is, again, why we need to have a conversation with the client first, because similar to the things that we wrote in our structure, a lot of times the client will say things in passing. They won't necessarily be like, I want this in the video. Sometimes they will, and that's really nice. That's like makes it easier on us, right? But a lot of times they'll just say like, and we really love our branding. Like, for example, when I was in Abu Dhabi, the festival loves including their branding and stuff. So how can we now pay attention to that detail and involve that in our shot list and look for moments like that? And the thing is even if you didn't create a storyboard or shot listing or a structure, the fact that you had a conversation with the client ahead of time and you notice that they're like, yeah, we love our branding. Then when you're on site shooting, now you're going to be looking for those things already, which is really powerful, and it's going to result in the client loving the video even more because you included aspects that they specifically talked about loving. So, but we're going to flesh it out so that we don't even have to think too hard about those things on the day of. We're trying to reduce our stress, be as efficient as possible. So that's why we're doing this. Okay. Another example, a lot of festivals, they're like, we love wide shots. We want big, wide sweeping shots, like beauty shots of big crowds and big stages. So that's like another thing that we would work into the shot list. And then the reason we would create a storyboard or a shot list and we're working through all the details that we outlined in our structure is because we need to be able to spot problems early. I cannot tell you, especially recently, like even back in Vegas, when Scotty Postal and I were directing the intros for these like weekend EDC recaps for these different clubs in Vegas, we planned out all of these intros and then we went through our ideas and problem solved things that we ran into. Like we even got to the location early and like walked through exactly what we were going to have the artist doing. And that resulted in us finding problems that we had to fix. Like, because maybe the idea or the thing that we were going to have them do was like too unrealistic for the time restrictions or for the creative in general. So this planning reveals unrealistic issues before we're on location, and you can continue to workshop those issues as you get on location and you're able to kind of like, figure out exactly where you're going to be and what you're going to be shooting. Okay. Last part is like the storyboarding aspect. So this can be really simple and it's totally up to you, but I'm telling you, like stick figures, arrows, and photo references are more than enough. And sometimes you can have a storyboard that is separate from a shot list, or sometimes people like to include the shot list and the storyboard together. So they'll put all the information about the shot above the figure or the image that represents that shot. And I think one of the most powerful things about storyboarding is when you're working with a team specifically, it's not even like for the client most of the time. It's usually for your team, because your team needs to know what your vision is. And the best way to describe that to a bunch of people who are like lean heavily towards the visual side is to show them an example image and to provide all of the information, like where the camera is going to be, what the frame looks like, how the camera's going to move, what lenses to use, all of those things. If you provide resources like that to your team, they're going to be able to execute your idea like so much better. So much better. It's so helpful. Now, for those that are not necessarily working with an entire team, maybe you're just working with like one other person. So for example, in Abu Dhabi, we had these super talented Cinema 4D like CGI artists. We had Mati and, oh man, I'm forgetting the other guy's name. Dang it. But they're both crazy, crazy talented. And I knew they could pull off the ideas that I had in my head. But what we had to do is create kind of a series of storyboards that helped them understand like the transitions that we wanted to do or the effects that we wanted to do and include in our artist recaps. So sometimes it doesn't even have to be every single shot. Maybe you're just collaborating with someone and you need them to understand a very specific part of the video. And so this can be a really good place to do that, is in the storyboard. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. That's one of my favorite parts to do in pre-production, is because you get to kind of like just sketch around and, you know, maybe laugh at yourself because your drawings are horrible. Like you don't have to be a professional, I'm telling you. But it's fun to just like, okay, why would the camera rotate left? Why would it be framed this way? You know, like there's all of these questions that you can ask yourself, and then that's kind of like what brings out the filmmaker in you. Plus, when you're thinking of this information ahead of time, this is the last part on like storyboarding and shot listing, but when you're thinking of this stuff ahead of time, it now removes that decision making on the day of. Those things, all of those things that you included now do not have to be rethought through on the day of the shoot. And that saves so much energy, so much creative energy, and allows you to then focus on problem solving and elevating that creative on the day of, which I think is just like so underrated, especially in the live event scene. Like, I've had this feeling for a while, but I feel like a lot of event recaps and event footage and stuff like that has kind of felt a little bit stale. And I think this is the perfect way to stand above previous content, is by focusing on details and planning things ahead. Yeah, just my opinion, but yeah, off the top of the dome, those are the things that come to mind. Okay, we got now, this is kind of, this is where we now ground ourselves in reality. We got all these crazy fun ideas, and we fleshed out a lot of problems. We've solved some problems. We've also got a nice concrete list and storyboard and references for what we need. And now we're going to ground ourselves. So a great plan falls apart fast if we ignore reality. Okay. So what parts of reality do we need to focus on? How about scouting our location? So we need to get reference photos or videos, identify light sources, sound issues, or layout problems. For example, if you're going to be the one creating a schedule, or you're just creating your own schedule for the day, which I like to do a lot, I need to know, for example, at a festival, how to get from one stage to the next, and how long does it take to get from one stage to the next. It's looking at where you're going to be and just kind of working through all your ideas and making sure that your ideas don't conflict with what your references are showing you about that location. Okay. Gear aware planning. So only write in shots that you can realistically pull off with what you have and in the time that you have. I have a confession to make. I often get way too ambitious with what I'm trying to pull off. And this gets me into trouble because a lot of times we got time constraints, and, you know, we got people with really expensive cameras and lenses and all this stuff. And if you're trying to pull off something that is too ambitious it will hurt you and the team, and we don't want that. We want to keep morale high. We want to have everyone leaving feeling good about how we executed the vision. And so it's just like going back through everything and making sure that what we have to work with is also capable, it's all doable with our ideas and what you have to work with. Yeah, sorry, that was a little bit repetitive, but you get the point. Okay, another thing here. We need to expect issues, whether that's dead batteries, bad weather, or last-minute changes, bring backups, have rain gear, etc., etc., etc. This I'll also throw in here. Client requests. And this is for all you people out there that like want to like lead a team. You're going to be fielding a lot of these client requests, and it's really important that you do two things. One, you make the client feel heard. So you need them to understand that the request they just made is, valid. They're allowed to ask about it, all of those things. And a lot of times they'll phrase it as a non-negotiable. They'll be like, we need this. And it's like, okay, sounds good. I hear you. What is here's what you don't ask is, where was this when we had pre-production calls? That don't go down that path. But I'd highly encourage you to, especially if it's a very unrealistic ask, is be like, okay, if you want us to do X, it's going to result in the delay or maybe the cutting of something else in the project. Because a lot of times they'll ask for something that needs resources that we don't have or that we didn't plan for. And so it's just having that conversation, being like, okay, does this make sense? Can we even do it with the resources that we have? And if not, then we need to push back against the client and be like, hey, for these reasons, we cannot accommodate this unless we were to cut something. And then you can have that conversation like, they actually don't want to prioritize something else. And so now we can create room for this extra request. That's like just a little side note on fielding questions like that, because I swear at every single festival, there is always a client request that comes out of nowhere and puts a massive hurdle in front of you and trying to get this like project done or this recap, get it done on time or get it out on time. So yeah, just want to touch on that. Then another thing, and this isn't always the case, but thinking about audio ahead of time. So do we need specific audio equipment for this creative idea? So that could be, we might need lav mics, shotgun mics, or do we need like a Zoom recorder, and we need to like be able to plug that into the soundboard at the festival or at the show. And like, I think it's really important to treat audio with the same importance as visuals. But again, that's highly dependent on the creative. And, unfortunately, audio a lot of times is an afterthought, especially if we're talking about just like recording, an artist at a show or something, and we're trying to catch something they said on the mic. And thankfully, with AI now and stuff, we have a lot of tools at our disposal to clean up that audio, make it nice. But there are some ideas that you can't really pull off without certain equipment. So just wanted to mention that. And then last thing on just like keeping ourselves grounded here, we have schedule things smart. So we need to build in time for setting up our camera gear, for breaking down our camera gear, unexpected delays. And then, for example, being 30 minutes early will give you a massive edge. I am a big fan of this. Showing up early to anywhere is something that I really, really try to do as often as possible, because one, a lot of times I'll have nerves, and getting there early allows me to kind of just like settle and lock in. I don't know. I just like care a lot about like all the projects that I work on, and just again, being grounded being nice and calm is the ideal, state to be in, especially when you're starting a festival or a show or whatever it is, because that's usually high stress. Um, but yeah, okay. And okay, we're moving on to my specific pre-production process. Some of these things are going to be the same, but I'm also going to dive into some stuff that I do just for specific circumstances that kind of just give me like a leg up, or just again remove even more creative decisions that I have to make on the day of. And this is actually something I want to talk about really quick is let's because there's going to be people that are going to push back and be like, okay, well, I'm really good at doing things off the cuff. And I would still argue, no matter what, a project will always be better if you do pre-production. And so let's just say that in terms of the creative quality of a project, we have a scale from 1 to 10, right? Okay, let's say that you do all this planning and you have all your ideas and everything's ready to go. Let's say at the status quo for that project, at like creative quality is a 5. We have a lot of creative decisions already made and a lot of things already decided. So now, once we get on site and all of those happy accidents happen and we have to pivot, blah, 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 and then we make more creative decisions, maybe now, because we freed up our mind to focus on other things, we're able to elevate that project to maybe a 7 or an 8 or even higher, right? It is my belief that if you show up with no plan, let's just say even on your best day, your creative quality level is probably like base level is a 2 or a 3 with like by just like showing up with no plan. And then on the day of, you make creative decisions that make the project better and you get it to like a 5 or a 6. But you can see how pre-production just puts you ahead. It frees up space in your head to come up with ideas and different ways to elevate the project that you wouldn't have been able to focus on previously. So that's like my argument with all this pre-production is that I believe that it's like our responsibility to try and make every single project the best it can possibly be every single time. And if you don't do pre-production, then, technically we're intentionally not putting in the effort that we could have to make it the best it could possibly be. Just my thought on this. All right, let's dive into my process. This is the exact process I use every time before I hit record. So like we talked about, client goals. We're getting clarity on what they actually want this video to do, not just what it should look like. References. We need to collect visual and audio references to align on tone and direction. A lot of times the client will send me like Instagram reels or TikTok reels or something like that. And so it's not just about capturing or like getting those links and like that's it. We need to get those references from the client, and then we need to have a conversation about what specifically in that reference that they like. Sorry, let me rephrase that. We need to help the client understand that we don't exactly know what in the reference they love, And so it's just getting absolute clarity on the aspect of the reference that they want included in their video or in their asset. So hopefully that made sense. Sorry for the word vomit. All right, story. Even if it's not narrative. So this is a story can be so simple. It could literally be, I woke up this morning. I normally go and eat cereal, but I'm out of cereal. So now I have to go to the store, get cereal, come back, and now I can eat breakfast. And now I can start my day. Like, really simple story. But that doesn't have to include dialogue or anything like that. It's just what is the beginning, middle, and end. Simple as that. Music. Okay, this is what we haven't touched on yet. We need to lock this in as early as possible because this is going to set the rhythm, tone, and edit pace. And immediately after we've made creative decisions with the client, how soon can I get the audio that you want to use for this? And I will hound them to get that music because I want to get that music into my timeline as soon as possible. And this is where like things get fun because now, before you've even gotten on site, you have your music in your timeline. You have it cut to the exact section that you want to use for the duration that the deliverable needs to be. And like a lot of times, especially if there's dialogue, if there's vocals in the music, we don't want to cut people off mid-sentence and stuff like that. So we need to really define where we're going to come in on that song and where we're going to end the song. And we can do all of that before we show up. Then mood board. I don't always do this. This is more for being on set or like in a studio space with like a controlled environment and lights and all of that stuff. But a mood board can be a way to, you kind of like put together. Mood boards are more like decks where you're kind of pitching a vibe or a feel or a style to the client, and you use kind of visual references to help them understand like the direction that you want to go. And all you artists out there who want to hold on to your ideas, creating a mood board will 10 out of 10 times help the client understand exactly what your idea is and like the direction that you want to go. If you do the board that aligns, if you create the board to align with your ideas, obviously. But yeah, so I don't always do that. It's not always, it's not mandatory. None of this is mandatory. You can take or leave any of this. But yeah, shot list. Detailed and prioritize, build to match the story arc and real world conditions. I already talked about this. Again, shot list doesn't even have to be as crazy as we talked about. It could be really simplified. It could be like, okay, these are all the key moments. Like it could literally just only be the key moments that the artist talked about wanting included in their video from the show because they have like special things planned in their set. That could be it. That could literally be in a notes app and you screenshot that and make it your wallpaper, which is what I do. Nice little cheat code, either a shot list or I'll create my schedule for the day. If it's a festival or something like that, create the schedule in the notes, screenshot it, make it your wallpaper. Now, every time you look at your phone, you know exactly what's coming up next. You're welcome. All right, we got storyboard. Again, this is use by use case, but when I said, remember when I talked about like using those to help VFX artists or CGI artists, this is like that, keeping it simple, helping it, but we can use it to visualize transitions, key moments, and pacing, blah, 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 blah. You get it. Yeah. And then we have timeline preparation. Okay. So this is where everything comes together. We cut the music. So like you said, we trim or loop to match the story length. And then we create a text edit. And so, one really quick thing on the music. Another thing that I will do, because again, we are visual people, is I create markers on the music track. And a lot of times the markers don't even necessarily mean that I'm going to cut there, like in the edit, but I like to just highlight different parts of the song, or maybe it's like every time the bass hits or every time a snare drum hits, or maybe it's like I'm cutting on the vocals. It's just like keeping marks on important parts of the song that I know I can take advantage of in the edit or plan for moments in the edit. So I'll put down markers on the music. Then I will go in and create a text edit. And what a text edit is I'm literally typing in Premiere Pro, like creating a text layer, and like writing exactly what I anticipate being on screen. So, it could be like wide shots, front of house, uh, artists doing X, whatever, right? And it could be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. But here, what we're doing is we're trying to map out exactly what would happen on the timeline ahead of time. And then what we can do is we can watch that text edit back, and a lot of times we'll be able to pick up on moments that work or don't work. And so now we're kind of doing the editing process before we even have any clips, and again, prevents us from having to make more creative decisions on the day of. So that's a little thing that I do. And then to take it one step further is I will put sound effects in. So I'll prep them ahead of time for sections that I know I'll need them for. So let's say, a classic EDM track will usually have like a big drop, right? So leading up to that drop, I might do a riser with a whoosh and then a crowd noise, or like at the end of an edit, a lot of times you want to, include fireworks or something like that. So you can put fireworks and crowd noises at the end. With this though, one note is that I wouldn't go too crazy with sound effects. Make sure you just like only put sound effects where for sure certain things are going to happen, because if we put too many sound effects down, then we're kind of doing the opposite of being efficient, because then later we'll have to move those sound effects if we change up the edit, and you will change up the edit. Okay, that is just like it just happens, like as you actually get footage and stuff, like things will change. But to just have some sort of structure to follow and a nice build out of what the edit could look like, massive. Okay, some quick takeaways. If you remember anything from this episode, let it be this: start with the client, get aligned before you shoot anything, plan like a storyteller. Even non-narrative work has a beginning, middle, and end. Visualize and organize. Sketch it, list it, prep for it. Plan for chaos. So we plan for chaos, and then we show up calm and ready. Professionalism is preparation. Not your gear, not your talent, not how many followers you have on Instagram. Professionalism is preparation. Strong pre-production turns solo shooters into standout creatives. I'm going to say it one more time. Strong pre-production turns solo shooters into standout creatives. I'm telling you guys, you want to separate yourself? Do pre-production. Really simple. All right. Now we're on to the hot take segment. Also, I forgot to mention, in last episode, this hot take and listener Q&A sections, they're going to be in and out, just based on, what questions I get in, and then, if I have a hot take or something for that day. But today I decided, let's keep it on theme here. Okay. We got, in case you feel yourself being resistant to the information that we just went through, here's my hot take on pre-production. If you think that you can just show up on the day of the shoot and just wing it, and that somehow that project will be the best that it can be without any forethought, you're dead wrong. It's a little bit repetitive, but the project will always be better when things have been thought out in advance. And now you might say, well, that doesn't allow for spontaneity or for happy accidents. And my response would be, it does if you let it. Our plans don't have to be rigid, but we do have to have a plan. All right. That's enough. I know I've been hammering it home. Just wanna put it out there, all right? If you can take or leave any of this, like I said before, but let me know your thoughts. Am I missing anything here? Do you agree, disagree with any of this? And I'm going to call you out again because I'm pretty, other than I think 2 people that have reached out and had actual conversations about the podcast, a lot of you have not said a damn thing. Come on, guys. What are you afraid of? Let's talk. I love having these conversations. And, whether you agree or don't agree, whatever, hit me up. Prove me wrong. I would love that. All right, moving on. No Q&A. No Q&A today. We're just going to keep it moving. Next week's episode is all about how the music industry has abandoned innovation for profit, how the major players have prioritized their own wants and needs over what would actually push music as a whole forward. I know. Some crazy stuff. If you're a creative working in music or just interested in the music industry and its inner workings in general, this episode is going to be really juicy. And I think it's pretty fitting. It's a monster of a topic to tackle, especially since it's episode 10. So looking forward to that. One more time, if you haven't yet, check out my newsletter, Work in Progress. You'll get these emails, that are just going to be a nice summation of the episodes, so you don't have to listen all the way through. And then, like I said, you'll get access and updates to my sound effect pack earlier than anyone else. Link is in the description and show notes. This has been the Work to Create podcast. If you found what you heard today valuable, even just a little, please consider liking, subscribing, following, commenting, and even leaving a review on your podcast app of choice. It helps this podcast get discovered, and hopefully, as a result, we can help more people. Your support means the world. Work to create, work to inspire, and I'll see you next time.
I'm on a roll like a jalopy with the brakes cut. I done came up. Back then I had to stay up.